All right, let's be absolutely clear. This is going to be a slow-paced video. That's the point of the show. We're talking strategy. Yes, it is another hand between me and former poker coach of mine, Matt Hunt. It will not be a $20 pot, I promise. It will be a big pot, but there will still be a lot of talking. If you don't want that, it's fine, but I don't need a comment about how it's too slow. I just really don't need that in my life right now. My life's very stressful. Frankly, you just really don't need to get in an uproar about it. Just day 2 here of the Poker Out Loud filming for season 6 on the sub site. Pretty excited to get another crack at it. Yesterday did not go well. Definitely some big mistakes on my part too. Mistakes partially born out of not working a lot on cash lately. Mistakes partially born out of the format. And yeah, overall just could have been a lot better. So I'm looking forward to coming at it today with some fresh eyes, some fresh words perhaps. And yeah, we'll see what we can do here.
Okay, this hand is going to be a pretty clear open in this spot. We're just going to go with the same 3x sizing. Ideally at 100 big blinds, I would like to be able to open to 2.5x, but obviously we're not playing with any chips smaller than 5, so we're just going to make it 3x.
Suited calls, off folds.
All right, so this offsuit Broadway is probably too weak to defend to an under the gun range from the small blind, but I think in the big blind with nobody left to act and with these relatively small sizes, as well as an inflated small blind that's dead, we can make the call with this hand. I think even if you open just a little bit bigger, I'd consider folding it, but here I'm going to be calling. So real quick, there are some textures where I will have a leading range from out of position as the pre-flop caller, but they're more so going to be boards where I have a pretty strong range advantage, where I have also a nut advantage, and this just isn't one of them. Hunt can have every set. I can probably only have pocket eights. We both probably have reasonably equal 2-pair combos, and he's going to have more overpairs and obviously ace-king. So I'm going to be checking here at our super high frequency, and this hand will be included in that.
So this is obviously a pretty good flop for our hand. It's also a pretty good flop for our range as well in this spot, low jack against big blind. However, this is a situation where even though I probably have a pretty solid equity advantage here against the big blind, I don't have much of a nut advantage. Matt can possibly have jacks in his range with some frequency. He can also have king jack, jack 8, and king 8 suited. So there's a decent number of combos with 2-pair in his range. It's not going to be super easy for me to just bet really large here. So I think sizing wise, I'm going to go small, and I think I'm going to go relatively high frequency. So we're just going to go with a small bet of 10 and continue from there.
Okay, so pot's 35 and Matt goes for a down bet of $10. This board is coordinated, but it doesn't have a flusher on it, so the size seems pretty reasonable. I think that there are some 1-pair hands I guess I could check raise for value, but I think that given that it's versus under the gun, I shouldn't be doing that too often. I'd rather do that against ranges that will contain more weaker king X, like if I was up against the button. Potentially I could still check raise ace king if I don't 3-bet it pre king queen. But this one I think is just going to function much better as a call. Obviously with my exact kicker, I can also pick up equity on some turns, and obviously top pairs could be good here a pretty significant majority of the time, but that doesn't mean I'm necessarily going broke in this spot, but especially against a small size, very easy call. So nothing really changes here. Again, leading for me on turn cards is going to be highly dependent on picking up a lot of equity or nut advantage as my whole range rather than a specific holding. And even for the specific holding, this card doesn't really change anything, so I'm going to be checking range here.
So this card is naturally a complete brick on this board, and generally speaking, in a spot like this, I'm going to want to go with a large bet sizing with a very polarized range. So here, when Matt's fairly capped, he also has a lot of draws. I think that a size that puts a lot of pressure on his one pair hands and folds out all of those draws is going to be really beneficial. So I think we're probably going to have to go something like 80 here. I think 80 is going to be good, so let's go with that.
80 is the bet.
Okay, so this is pretty interesting. Hunt goes for a turn over bet. There's 55 in the pot, and the bet is 80. I think that this is probably pretty good with whatever hands he's choosing to do it with. He has a lot of hands in range that want to deny my equity now. He can also pressure a lot of the medium strength holdings in my range with bluffs because he bets so small on flop. He allows my range to continue pretty wide here to the turn. I would expect him to do this with a lot of hands that are strong draws and combo draws, very strong top pairs like ace king, king queen, sets, two pairs. It doesn't really eliminate him from having too many holdings, except for I'm not so sure he's going to do this with a lot of weaker draws, which makes my exact hand kind of uncomfortable because it's going to struggle to continue against basically more action that is like this. And obviously if we call here, the pot now inflates pretty rapidly to being over $200, and we're looking at potentially an overbet all in on the river. I actually don't know if we have a spade in hand. That's somewhat relevant here. I do have the king of spades, which I guess is good, given that the king of spades obviously isn't on the board. We have it, but it's not on the board, which means theoretically he could hold it. I'm actually not positive if he would be more likely to overbet with a hand like that or choose a smaller size, because he actually blocks many of the stronger top pair and strong like backdoor draws that I could hold. So he might be less inclined to overbet with that hand anyway. So it might not be that relevant. I think all in all, even though we do block some of the draws with our 10, not having the 10 of spades is probably better. Having the king of spades rather than the 10 of spades is probably good. So I'm definitely not folding yet, but I'm unsure on rivers what we're going to be doing. I imagine that having the 10 is going to be pretty bad on a lot of brick rivers. If we do face an all-in, we will block some of the strong straight draws, but again, not having it be the 10 of spades is good. So I might just kind of have to see what the exact river is and try to figure it out then. I'm definitely not sure right now.
Cool. Check.
So that card is a complete brick as well. I want to recheck my whole cards just to make sure I don't mess anything up here. So that card's a complete brick, which puts us in a position that's, it's a really good spot for us, because when a brick rolls off like that, basically everything that overbet the turn can then continue overbetting the river, because nothing in his range got stronger and everything in my range either got much stronger or much weaker. Meaning that even though I have about 2x pot behind, maybe a little bit less than that, this is still going to work pretty well for just an all-in shove as my only bet sizing. There's no reason to ever use anything less here. And particularly with the hand I have the advantage of being able to actually block some of his weaker bluff catches, so block some of his 8x of spades and unblock a lot of his king x that is going to be in a tough spot and may consider bluff catching. So we're just going to be all in and see what happens. All in.
Oh, he's all in.
Okay, so as mentioned, not shocked to see this size. There was 55 in the pot on turn. We put in 160, so there's 215 in the pot on the river, and he's jamming for basically almost exactly 2x pot. What did he says he's not a math guy. So I was starting to think about what I would do if there was a spade on the river, given that I have the king of spades, and I think, you know, I'm kind of in the same boat because he's not usually going to pick a hand to have a smaller size here and I get to like check raise or anything cute like that. It's still just going to be facing an all in. But given that the spades missed, I think this is pretty good for me. I do, again, still block straight draws, but I don't block
any flush draws that I was thinking he would take this line with. Obviously, I'm blocking some of the value like ace, king, kings. And when the spades miss, and I think that a big portion of his bluffing range on turn includes spades, it's pretty hard to want to give up here. I'm also trying to think about what my range looks like in this spot and how many strong hands I actually arrive at the river with. And there's just not really so many. I think that I'm pretty incentivized to put in some check raises on flop with a lot of my 2-pair combos. I never improve to 2-pair on turn or river. Probably never improve to sets either. I probably just muck 3s on the flop. And so when I'm looking at the best holdings I can have some slow plays of 2-pair, some slow plays of sets. But besides that, king, queen, and a probably pretty low to negligible frequency of ace, king, I'm actually starting to be kind of close to the top of my range here. It's probably a spot where I don't even arrive at the river with a lot of worse kings, so maybe I'm closer to the bottom than I think. But I do also have a lot of draws here that we'll have to release. Some of those will get it in on the turn, but some won't versus an overbet. So I'm kind of just leaning toward call. We're also in a format that moves a little bit slow and I think kind of incentivizes people to just go for it. And even though I think Hunt is about as level as they come, he's still gonna be kind of influenced by that. I think his line makes perfect sense. There's nothing magical going on here in terms of me deciding to call, but I do think call probably makes sense, although I'm sort of on the exact combo that I'm unsure about, which is always fun when you're facing 2x pot. But I am gonna call.
Got. Shows. Set it.
Set is good.
The old fake tilt.
Yeah, the fake
tilt,
steam.
yeah.
Set him right up for it, huh?
The fake steam.
The old
Yeah, that's
fake
what got me to
Steve.
call. Playing, I think that I mostly played well. A couple spots I would definitely take back or tweak in for something like 2100 out for 960, I believe, was the gist of it. So a little bit brutal. Tomorrow is the vlogger edition. It's been really fun getting back into YouTube with the help of editors so that I can actually pump out content. And it feels good to sort of like be back on the grind for real.
By the way, guys, I'm opening a new club on Club GG. We'll be running games from 10 cent, 20 cent, all the way up to 1-2 to start, and I'd love to see you guys over there. Just join Discord so that you know all the details about getting started.